And so, am I right? You don't choose your call sign; you're given it. If you get given
Right.
if you get given a lousy one, can you appeal that process? Is it like Hogwarts and the hat? I don't know how does it work.
If you get given a lousy one and you try to protest, it's sticking even harder, like super glue. Like if you try it, if you allude to the fact that you don't enjoy being called that, everyone's going to call you that even more. So that doesn't work. Now, the way it works is you earn a reputation, maybe in flight school, usually from doing something stupid. Is how most call signs come about, and people just start kind of calling you this or that. And then you go through training to fly the aircraft you're going to fly in the fleet. So in my case, again, lucky to get F-14s. I go through VF 101, the Grim Reapers. That's a squadron that teaches all F-14 air crew how to operate that aircraft. And then during that tour, maybe you did something really stupid, or you blew some tires, or you did, I don't know, something silly out of the pub or something silly in the airplane. And then that would kind of stick with you. But it's not till you arrive at your first, we call it a fleet squadron, your first 3-year, you're on a 3-year set of what we call sea duty orders, where you're going to this one squadron, and that is your home for 3 years, whether they're deployed or stateside or somewhere in between. You're there for nearly exactly 36 months. When you first check in that squadron, you might have some mates who are maybe a few months ahead of you that have joined that squadron, and they already know who you are. And maybe you already have a reputation, whether it's good or bad. But that's the point where your call sign is really solidified. And they have all the JOs, the junior officers. These are you would call them lieutenants. The lieutenants and below convene a board, and they call it a call sign review board. And they take it, it's fun game, but it's serious, where they come up with a call sign review board, and they sit down in the ready room. They put up on the whiteboard, all these, okay, here comes Mark Stufflebeam. I knew him from flight school, and we partied together in college, or they know who you are probably. And they put a bunch of call signs up, and maybe there's some of the older guys that have never even heard of you, have never met you, and they might have their opinion because of your last name sounds like this, or they heard that you did this at a pub, or you did this in an airplane. So there's maybe 5 or 6 call signs that kind of get thrown up onto the whiteboard. And then this board convenes and they vote, and they say, nope, he's going to be this. And then they have to forward that to the skipper. That's the commanding officer of the squadron. And the commanding officer has to blast off on, okay, yes, that's acceptable, or that won't get me fired, at least not right away. But the skipper ultimately has the hammer on it, but it gets approved at that point. And then you show up, and they have a patch with your name and your call sign, and here you go. And that's what you get. And there's no protesting, and there's no recourse if you don't like it. And like I mentioned, if you don't like it, you better not let anybody know that you don't like it, because then it's definitely going to stick.
That's awesome.
And then it's pretty hard to get a different one. If you do something extraordinarily stupid, a big thing is like skidding an airplane off into the grass at the runway when we're operating ashore, or if you blow tires out on the aircraft carrier. Boom, boom is a very common call sign at that point, where they would convene an emergency call sign review board if you've done something egregiously stupid, either out, at the hotel, in the Mediterranean, during your deployment. If you did something really silly at the pub, or if you did something really silly in the aircraft, they might convene an emergency call sign review board and vote to change it. But it takes a pretty egregious act to have it changed from that point.
I was going to say, I love that it's that kind of the process is that there's like a review board to rename you something appropriate to the stupidity displayed. I mean, that's I thought it was a much more kind of casual process that it came about by, but
I'll tell you this too. My peers in the Air Force, and I've got some good mates that were Air Force, maybe F-15 or F-16 types. But the Air Force, I don't know how they do it. And we make fun of them because they will be like, oh, Skull Crusher or Laser or Zap or something that sounds really cool. And you go into a Navy ready room and you've got weird acronyms like WETA and Bling and Flounder and unbecoming names. And maybe if you know the story, there's an acronym behind it. They don't sound cool as Grimace. If you remember, I don't know how popular McDonald's was in the UK in the 80s, but the big purple monster from McDonald's, Grimace, like this big fat blob that scares the crap out of children everywhere, right? Yeah, there's people call sign Grimace, like if you happen to be kind of tubby. It's not becoming, but the Air Force, somehow they have all these really cool call signs. So I guess they get to pick their own, or I don't know, but we always give them a bunch of crap for that.
If you enjoyed that, you can listen to the full podcast by clicking right here.